Hello, folks. Welcome back to Chris Wyatt Reports. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. And here we have another day and more fake news. What am I talking about? Well, News24, South Africa's major news outlet, runs two stories today, both of which are disguised as news reporting when they're simply opinion and editorial. You'll find them on the news tab on their website. One story by Philip de Vet entitled South Africa versus Israel. 1 week later, and still no sign of Israel's compliance with key ICJ orders. Now, the second story is from a well-known journalist from News24, of course, wrapped up in that case with Jacob Zuma. That's Karen Mon. And her story says, U.S. court confirms genocide case against Israel is plausible, but says it can't block U.S. weapons. Now, both of these stories are simply not true. These are opinion, and they should be put on the op-ed page. Now, according to Philip de Vet, the International Court of Justice told Israel to prevent killings and injuries in Gaza. That is not what it did. The 6 rulings that came from the ICJ did not state that. He said that the World Court also told Israel to prevent genocidal incitement. Yes, they did tell Israel to uphold their responsibilities for it. That's correct. Now, he said the Israeli government also not only failed to stop a conference that some of its allies feared may have featured genocidal rhetoric, but saw a significant part of its cabinet in attendance. There was this conference, another own goal by Israelis, not the Israeli government, by Israelis. Apparently, 2 ministers spoke of this conference, and as many as 9 apparently purportedly were present. But that does not make for genocide. This was a conference by xenophobic Israelis who want what is known as the Gaza Strip to be returned to Israel, which was occupied by Jews, and Jews were forced to evacuate it and leave it for the Palestinians in 2005 when the Israeli Defense Force and the Israeli government withdrew from overseeing a governance of the Gaza Strip, turning it over to the Palestinian Authority, and we've seen what they've done with it. Now, he claims Israel was also told to make sure its military does not commit any acts described in genocide and attacking civilians and that sort of thing. But that's not really what the court actually said. Now, this is where the editorial comes in here, aside from the blatant, outright false claims being made by Mr. de Vet. He says that in that measure, which seems to require command to not kill or injure any Palestinians, Israel has not shared the details of orders given to its military, but statistics support previous political statements that the nature of the military engagement would not change in the face of the ICJ ruling. Well, the ICJ ruling was not about them changing their military response. It was about them adhering to international norms and international law and treaty, which is something Israel claims it's doing. So this is a matter of opinion by Phil de Vet, not fact. And his opinion, now, he says this conference, the Israeli cabinet ministers, 2 of them spoke there and 9 were in attendance. So 11 cabinet members. That's pretty significant. That's a fair point. But that conference, it's not about genocide. It's about expulsion. There's a huge difference between forcing people out of land and destroying them. Both are morally wrong. Now, he says whether the calls for people to be encouraged to leave Gaza and to be replaced by a new population meets the definition of genocidal rhetoric may yet be tested in court. Now, such an issue has already been discussed in court in the past, and it does not reach genocide. And this is weak op-ed with poor conclusions based on very biased worldview. Now, in Karen Mon's story, she says U.S. court confirms genocide case against Israel is plausible, but says it can't block U.S. weapons. Well, that's a false statement. There was no U.S. court that made a decision. A federal judge appointed by Obama in a ridiculous lawsuit brought in California has come up with ludicrous conclusions, making statements out of context of the rule of law when his job was to decide a case, which he dismissed. Now, she falsely claims that the International Court of Justice found there was plausible genocide case against Israel. That is simply a lie. That is ANC propaganda. That is rhetoric. Who pays your salary, Karen? Who pays your salary? News24? The ANC? Who pays your salary? The ICJ did not find a plausible case of genocide against Israel. In fact, the ICJ simply told Israel to adhere to international norms and report back within 30 days. That is not the ceasefire that they were seeking. That is not what is going on here. The U.S. District Court found that undisputed evidence that Palestinian expert witnesses indicated the ongoing military siege in Gaza was intended to eradicate a whole people. Well, that's what the judge said, but that's not a court. There were no jury panel members there. This was a judge, a politically appointed judge, a political creature. And his statement, there's undisputed evidence, is simply fiction. That's his opinion. He did not decide the merits of this case because it's not within his jurisdiction. Judge Jeffrey White implored President Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to examine the results of their unflagging support of the military siege against the Palestinians in Gaza. To which I would say, where is Karen Mon in calling for Iran to examine the consequences of its campaign to arm Hamas and Hezbollah? What about that? Now, the judge agreed with lawyers for the Biden administration that he did not have the jurisdiction to decide the case launched against him by Palestinian human rights groups because it concerned a political question on American foreign policy. It's not a political question, it's American foreign policy, and U.S. courts do not have any authority to make a decision on this. He dismissed the case. Now, this is a case with no merit, brought in California against the United States by a bunch of radical lunatics, yet News24 thinks it's appropriate to run a story in which the case was lost. There was no merit to it, and they run a headline claiming that U.S. court agrees with the ICJ that there is a plausible genocide case. Neither of those statements is even remotely true. The ICJ did not decide that. They did not come to that conclusion, and that is pure fiction propagated by the African National Congress and its willing accomplices in the media. Wow. The ICJ did grant 6 provisional measures in that Gaza genocide allegation case, but none of them are what Philip DeVette or Karen Mon are claiming. Wow. And in fact, she tells the truth here. The court did not grant South Africa's request to order a suspension of Israel's military operation. No ceasefire. And South Africa's government is adamant that the 6 provisional measures granted against Israel effectively required it to stop its attacks on the densely populated area. And that is simply factually untrue. So the ICJ, according to Karen Mon, told Israel it must stop attacking Hamas in Gaza. Is that what the ICJ said? That Israel must stop attacking Hamas in Gaza? Ignoring the fact that it doesn't matter whether Israel does an attack in Gaza or not. Every single day, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other groups are firing rockets into Israel. And were it not for the Israeli offensive in Gaza to eliminate Hamas, they would be inside Israel murdering civilians again. This is not news, ladies and gentlemen. It's not even thinly disguised op-ed. It is pure out and out op-ed, hidden right in plain sight on the news page. And for the sheep that don't have critical thinking capabilities because they're incensed because of their affiliations on one side or the other, whether it's with Israel and Jews or whether it's with Muslims and the Palestinians, put your personal bias aside. The International Court of Justice did not make the rulings that Karen Mon and Philip DeVette are claiming. That is simply untrue. These are supposed to be journalists. Their job is to report the news. If they want to write op-ed, make them op-ed contributors, put them on the opinion editorial page and be honest about what you're writing. This is not news. These news reports are op-ed, not news. And they're contorting the truth. You know, you're welcome to say what you want in your opinion. But when you report the news, you must report the facts. And these are not facts. It is not factual. It is not true. And shame on News24. Shame on you, Adrien Basson. Shame on this organization. It continues to carry the water of communists and those who hate the developed world. What a tragedy for South Africans that they're subjected to this sort of nonsense. You should hire genuine journalists that actually do news reporting, not opinionators disguised as journalists. This is shameful, shameful. No facts here, just opinion. Well, there you go, folks. The Mampara of the week. News24, Philip DeVette, and Karen Mon share that together. Thanks a lot. Be sure to follow the channel and hit the like button if you don't mind. Become a subscriber. We do appreciate it. Take care of yourself.